In public relations, reputation matters, and Bell Pottinger's has just hit rock bottom. Within 24 hours, its CEO resigned and the British firm was expelled from the Public Relations and Communications Association for breaching its code of conduct. Bell Pottinger was the subject of a complaint brought by South Africa's main opposition party, the Democratic Alliance. Its supporters demonstrated outside the hearing last month. The DA accused the firm of running a racially divisive campaign on behalf of a prominent business family with close ties to President Jacob Zuma. That campaign used slogans like "White Monopoly Capital" to describe the president's opponents on a range of media, including the Gupta's own TV channel.
A propaganda campaign. This is what this was. This is Bell Pottinger and what they did to South Africa. And a propaganda campaign, broadly speaking, without getting lost in the details, is meant to destabilize, especially when it's carried out against a country, a nation. A propaganda campaign seeks to destabilize so that it can tear apart or fracture the nation, the institutions, the people groups, and cause divisions. Whoever's putting forward this propaganda campaign can then slide in, whether it's an opposing nation, an opposing political party, or a faction within the country that's trying to take more power and more ground for themselves. A propaganda campaign is there to destabilize a nation.
Okay.
The company that you built with your own hands, it must be a devastating day for you.
It is. Very disappointing.
What went wrong?
And people get hurt and things fall apart. There are two major propaganda campaigns being run against the South African nation today. And you have to ask, what is the purpose of these propaganda campaigns? Who is trying to destabilize the country? To what end? What are they trying to do? Where are they trying to slide in, cause divisions, and take more power and ground for themselves? The two major propaganda campaigns in South Africa today trying to fracture the nation.
Turn the lights down, and just put this on. It's right behind you.
Are the white genocide narrative.
You are fake news.
To issues of immigration, because scores of Ghanaians are expected to start leaving the country today, claiming they may be targets of alleged xenophobia.
And the xenophobia narrative.
You are fake news.
The white genocide narrative holds that white South Africans, primarily Afrikaner farmers, are being systematically and deliberately killed by black South Africans with a tacit or active support of the post-apartheid government as part of an organized campaign to eliminate the white minority. Just on its face, you already know that's a bold-faced lie, because if that was happening, it would probably take about an hour. If the black people of South Africa wanted to get rid of the white people in some sort of a genocide, as they call it, why didn't it happen a very long time ago, especially in the 90s? No matter how many armed groups or militias there are of Afrikaners in this country, the numbers are just not with them. Because if something like this was actually serious and people wanted to make it happen, it would take about an hour, maybe two, and most of the people in South Africa would not even know it was happening. They would read about it on the internet or see it on the news. And people would be shocked that someone is killing white people. What is going on? So right from the beginning, the claim, the assertion on its face already seems false, already seems ridiculous to anybody of any color living in South Africa. So you can see that there is some sort of psychological operation, a PsyOp, being carried out here.
Until Donald J. Trump became president, no one said a thing. Europe and the UK, pathetic, soft diplomacy. Soft diplomacy does not work with these people. And, you know, Obama and Biden, I mean, they'd never say boo to a black African president. But Donald Trump looks at it and says, this country's going down the plug. And if I can give a terrifying analogy, South Africa is Germany in the early 1930s.
You are fake news.
The white minority are being boiled like frogs. There's an economic genocide taking place with black economic empowerment, with expropriation without compensation, with the destruction of the economy, the potential hasn't begun yet, disarming of the population.
The legal definition, according to the United Nations, of genocide requires acts committed with the intent to destroy, in whole or in part, a nation, an ethnicity, a racial group, or a religious group. Experts across the political spectrum and multiple international bodies have found that events in South Africa do not meet this threshold. The claim is not new. Claims about the white genocide in South Africa have circulated for decades, especially on more far-right sites and social media. How the claim works is to grossly inflate statistics about farm murders. In the 24-25 financial year, 25,423 people were murdered in South Africa in total, an average of 69 people lost every single day, which is horrific. Of those 25,423 murders, 358 took place on agricultural land, including farms, plots, and small holdings, and only 42 of these involved individuals classified as part of the farming community or commercial farms. According to government data from April to December 2024, there were 19,696 murders. 36 of those were connected to farms. 7 of the victims were farmers. The remaining 29 victims were farm workers who are predominantly black. According to data compiled by the Transvaal Agricultural Union of South Africa, a commercial farmers union made up of mostly Afrikaners, there were 32 farm murders in 2024, down from 50 in 2023 and 43 in 2022, and a total of just under 2,300 farm murders since 1990. If South Africa's never repaired, the men can blame themselves. That is why I ask you to join our membership for this channel today. Our Christian conservative membership is for men who are interested in understanding the sort of men and the disciplines and principles that truly build societies. The same disciplines and principles we need to apply if we are to repair our country, our beloved South Africa. Join today. I look forward to seeing you over there. May the Lord shine on you today.
Why are you running? Why are you running?
The South African Police Service's crime report of April 2022 to March 2023 shows that there were 51 murders on farms out of a total of 27,494 murders nationwide. Farm murders represent about 1% of all murders in the country. South African police only began publishing the race of those murdered on the farms under pressure in 2024. In the first quarter of 2025, they reported 6 farm homicides. 5 of the victims were black. Per the BBC, the Transvaal Agricultural Union recorded 23 white people and 9 black people killed in farm attacks in 2024 alone, while 4 black people and 3 white people had been killed on farms in 2025 as of that reporting. From the available evidence, researchers at the Institute of Security Studies found white people are the least at risk of being murdered in South Africa.
Okay.
Murder victimization is far more correlated to class, gender, and location than race. 44% of black South Africans live in poverty compared to 1% of whites. The majority of murder victims in South Africa are poor, under or unemployed young black men. So can you see that the propaganda being put in question is not only the white genocide, it's also the GBV cult, which is also a destabilizing propaganda machine meant to destabilize relationships between men and women.
I said, hold up, wait a minute, something ain't right.
About half of murders in South Africa take place in about 12% of precincts, primarily townships or poor areas in metropolitan cities, mostly populated by black African people. But you have to wonder why the propaganda is being pushed about a white genocide. I'm not saying there are no farm murders. You won't find many people saying that. Anybody who's saying that has been disproved a long time ago and is a liar and a fool. However, to not say that there are farm murders and it is a crime and it is horrible and we should do something about it because farmers shouldn't be getting killed, to go from to not say that but to actually call it a white genocide, that's something else. Now that's propaganda.
Propaganda is ubiquitous and everyone uses propaganda. It's a kind of communication that makes a case for a goal bypassing reason. So what it does is it's a method to urge you to mobilize towards something while concealing from you things that you reasonably should think, should consider. We have these irrational biases, and what propaganda does is it takes notions like freedom, integrity, and it weds them to these irrational biases. Operation Iraqi Freedom is what the Iraq War was called. Why was killing hundreds and hundreds of thousands of Iraqis called Operation Iraqi Freedom? Because the idea was somehow freedom is what Americans do. If we're doing it, it must be freedom.
That's destabilization. That's seeding division to act on it. A 2003 government inquiry into farm attacks, can you see that this thing has been investigated a long time, found that all the investigating officers are of the opinion that the primary motive for the greater majority of cases, perhaps 90%, is robbery. They are also of the view that farm attacks are not politically motivated and that there is no evidence of any organized structure behind the attacks. They are also of the view that farm attacks are not politically motivated and that there is no evidence of an organized structure behind the attacks. There is a perception amongst perpetrators that farmers are wealthy, actually. And if you think about it, isolation, perceived to be wealthy, to have a lot of belongings, especially equipment and cars and livestock, and a cash business where often the money is kept on the property and the police are far away. And it can be difficult to find some of these farmhouses if you're a policeman and you don't know exactly where that place is. That's a hotbed for crime. That's an opportunity for criminals, no matter how you think of it or how you want to phrase it. That is an opportunity to commit a crime against those people. And especially when you consider that it's a family. It's not exactly an armed militia of people. It's a family with one father, a mother, and some children. That is a soft target for any criminal, especially the violent type. That is not a genocide. That's just a criminal looking at what he imagines to be a soft target where he can get a lot out of them. Vehicles, money, cell phones, and who knows what else. The isolation of farms make farmers particularly vulnerable to crime, but this is a function of geography and socioeconomic conditions rather than political or racial intent. These crimes are brutal and concerning, but they stem from high levels of violent crime and poor rural policing, not from state-sponsored or group-led intent to annihilate racial groups. One of the reasons why you can find that these people tend to become more violent on farms is not because there's a white genocide, it's because they know they have time. These are sadistic, violent criminals. The minute they have no time or they're under pressure, they will work quickly. And what usually happens, they just shoot people at that stage. That's what happens in many crimes around the country, whether it's a hijacking or some sort of robbery or a housebreaking.
We've never used the term white farmers. We said farm murders should also be a priority
But where
crime.
does the narrative then come from, Kali? Because let's go back to what you mentioned. You say AfriForum has done its own studies. So as per your figures, in the financial year of 2023 to 2024, you recorded 49 farm murders, and that represents 0.2% of the 27,621 murders nationwide. And the narrative, which keeps on being pushed by President Donald Trump to impose sanctions on South Africa, you have heard now how he is going to push South Africa out of the multilateral space by not inviting them to the G20 2026. It is based on the argument that white people in this country are being exacted to violent crime, particularly farm workers. But you yourself are saying that crime is across the board. Is it not then your responsibility as AfriForum, who has gone to the United States to raise the issue of farm killings, particularly of white farmers, to say, please correct your narrative?
What happens on a farm is that they know that the police aren't coming anytime soon, especially if the alarm wasn't triggered or they weren't called, so they can carry out sadistic fantasies. That's actually what's happening, not a white genocide. is the sort of criminals we need to bring the death penalty back for. There's actually no indication of a state-sponsored campaign or intent to annihilate specific racial groups, especially white farmers. The primary motive remains robbery. That's where the evidence points, and even those advocating the white genocide would say the same. This is sometimes coupled with extreme violence, consistent with broader patterns of violence of crime in South Africa. That's what the research shows. It's actually not about white genocide, it's about criminality in South Africa.
Well, I think South Africa is a movie.
Let's look at the long-term farm murder data from 1990 to 2024. According to South Africa's Transvaal Agricultural Union, the total number of farm murders between 1990 and 2024 stood at 2,229. This included 1,363 white farmers, 529 relatives of white farmers, 38 white workers, 30 white visitors, 88 black farmers, 61 relatives of black farmers, 188 black workers, and 7 black visitors. On average, 56 white South Africans were killed on farms per year over this 35-year period. This figure, while tragic, is sourced from an organization sympathetic to white Afrikaner farmers, making it a high-end estimate, used even by advocates of that narrative of white genocide. And it still does not approach the legal or demographic threshold of genocide.
Okay.
In 2019, the average per capita income among white South Africans was comparable to national income per capita in Denmark. Among black South Africans, it was comparable to Bangladesh. South Africa remains the most unequal country in the world today, with a top 10% pre-tax income share reaching 70% and a Gini coefficient of pre-tax income inequality of 0.8. The pre-tax inequality in 2019 was just as high as in 1993. 32% of the population is unemployed. As of 2024, black South Africans are 4 times more likely to be unemployed than their white counterparts. Over 60% of black South Africans live below the poverty line compared to 1% of whites. This is what drives things like farm murders and crimes in townships and crimes all over South Africa. President Cyril Ramaphosa, a loser and a failure, signed the expropriation bill into law on 24 January 2025. It repeals the Expropriation Act of 1975. The law established how the South African government can legally take private property for public use, a concept such as eminent domain, ubiquitous around the globe, including in the US Constitution. The controversy lies in the carve-out for expropriation without compensation under limited circumstances. Now, the government taking land from citizens, paying them, and using it for something that is beneficial to the state is not uncommon in any country. But people in South Africa are right to be worried because the South African ANC government is a socialist government that seeks to take personal property, and it won't stop at the land. So people who are raising concern about this sort of act are right to be concerned. The new act allows for land expropriation for public purposes while introducing the possibility of zero compensation for expropriated land under broader but still limited circumstances than the 1975 version. No land had been seized under the new expropriation law as of mid-May 2025, according to Bloomberg. Ramaphosa has defended the act, insisting it does not amount to land confiscation, but creates a framework for fair and lawful redistribution, allowing authorities to take land without compensation only in exceptional circumstances, such as when an area is abandoned.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
Now, if you believe that, you'll believe anything. And the key problem here is that word redistribution. That is where you have to be careful and understand what Ramaphosa and his socialist minions are trying to do. So people are right to be concerned about this. That does not equate to white genocide, and there is no proof of that. As of 2016, the South African government had spent more than 60 billion on land reform projects since 1994. Despite this investment, the land reform program has not stimulated development in targeted rural areas, according to a government financial and fiscal commission report.
These communities were removed from their ancestral land to different destinations for the construction of the Sandile Dam in the 1980s. The communities in this area also experienced forced removals in the 1960s due to apartheid laws. More than 500 of the displaced households lodged a land claim almost 30 years ago, and it was only approved in 2023. But most claimants are yet to be compensated.
Now, you must understand something about land claims and the government giving back the land to people who are dispossessed and paying off people that are on that land, sometimes farmers, sometimes not. The government is not working for people and for the benefit of South Africa. As a matter of fact, if you investigate the land claims being made, the government often works very hard against the people claiming the land and makes it very difficult for them to get anything off the ground if they even ever win the land claim. Some of the land claims have been running for decades and are still not resolved. And the ones that are resolved, the government tries to make it as hard as possible for that project. And what they end up doing is taking possession of that land, appointing someone to that land, usually the farmer that they just paid out, and running it as a government project. That's why a lot of people will say, oh, all these land claim things fail. It's not just because of the people who have claimed the land. You have to really study it. The government land claim system works against the people, how the government is dispossessing the black population of the land, and they're trying to dispossess the white population through the Expropriation Act. Both are being destabilized while being divided so that the land can end up where? In the hands of the government.
South Africa is a movie.
Instead of a solid government policy and function, which is what government is supposed to do to solve disputes, implementing this sort of land claim process properly, what has happened is that the land claim process has become so corrupt that it's a government scheme to take land from the claimants. That's why the projects always fail. We've also seen some key personalities chime into this propaganda campaign. People like Donald Trump, the President of America. Trump has been making claims about the large-scale killing on farms, at least as far back as 2018. He says things like this.
These are burial sites right here. Burial sites. Over 1,000 of white farmers. And those cars are lined up to pay love on a Sunday morning. Those people were all killed.
Have they told you where that is, Mr. President? No, I'd like to know where that is, because this I've never seen. But okay.
I mean, it's in South Africa. No, when you look at the videos, I mean, how does it get worse? And these are people that are officials, and they're saying that kill the white farmer and take their land.
Their perspective.
But you do allow them to take land.
No.
You do allow them to take land.
Nobody can take land.
And then when they take the land, they kill the white farmer. And when they kill the white farmer, nothing happens to them.
Where has that ever happened? This is a bold-faced lie. This is criminal. This is evil. This is Freemasonic Epstein class behavior, not unlike a man who would protect PDF files. And he is lying. And he is lying on behalf of the people pressurizing South Africa.
I wouldn't mind getting an overview of how you think the South Africans have presented their case in terms of how it's been very finely divided and presented piecemeal, not just for the court, I think, but also for the international audience.
Yeah, I think that's right, that the lawyers are thinking about the court and they speak to the court, but they're also thinking about who's watching. And their presentation was, frankly, very impressive.
And here we come to the rub, because why is this propaganda campaign all of a sudden kicked up a notch? Yes, it's been running for a long time, since 2003, as you've heard me discuss here, but that was because there was a white grouping in the population of South Africa that wanted to push this to embarrass the government and to push towards separatism. And what has now become a full-blown secession movement in South Africa, where there's certain groups of white people that want a piece of South Africa for their own and their own homeland. And that's why part of that group is working with Trump. And Trump is pushing this narrative, and it's become a focal point for him, not because he genuinely cares and not because it's true, because it's not and he doesn't. It's because he's pushing it on behalf of Israel, which is angry at South Africa, going to the ICJ with the backing of Iran on behalf of the Gazans to say that Israel was committing a genocide. Many South Africans were angry about South Africa going to the ICJ to say that Israel is committing a genocide in Gaza, not because South Africans don't care, but because South Africans were like, this is not our problem. Why are we involved in this? But the truth is this. After all is said and done, I hate Cyril Ramaphosa and I hate the ANC, but they were correct. The Israelis are committing a genocide in Gaza. That's beyond a shadow of a doubt now. It was obvious to me and it was obvious to anybody else. And I'm no big defender of Palestine or Israel. I think we should stay out of it. But it's quite obvious, as soon as those tanks started rolling in, what exactly was going to happen. And South Africa taking the case looks like a completely justified case now, because that's exactly what's happened. And the irony of Israel pushing America to accuse South Africa of genocide, while America is allowing Israel to commit a genocide in Gaza. Destabilization. In February 2025, Donald Trump signed an executive order citing the Expropriation Act and alleging genocide. In May of 2025, he confronted Cyril Ramaphosa, who represented himself and us very badly in that White House meeting. He confronted South African President Cyril Ramaphosa at the White House with videos and photos he claimed were evidence of killings. Elon Musk, who was born in Pretoria, Musk has peddled claims that his native country is pushing for genocide of white people. Where's that ever happened?
You are fake news.
Grok, the AI chatbot incorporated into his platform X, frequently responded unprompted to users with misleading claims about the alleged white genocide in South Africa. Musk attended the Trump-Ramaphosa White House meeting.
You are fake news.
Trump's team showed a video of Malema, leader of the left-wing economic freedom fighters, Gucci revolutionaries if you've ever seen them, singing the anti-apartheid song Dubuli Bunu, also known as Kill the Boer, at a rally. Boer, of course, is the Afrikaans word for farmer and is also often interpreted to mean the Afrikaner. The song emerged in the 1980s. South Africa's courts have ruled that given its history, those singing Dubuli Bunu are protected under freedom of expression. The politician has championed controversial policies including expropriating land without compensation and nationalizing mines for the benefit of black South Africans. Julius Malema has no intent of benefiting black South Africans by nationalization of assets like mines. Nationalizing assets like mines is a terrible idea because private property is what builds countries. And as for Dubuli Bunu, it's a cultural artifact actually, and has never actually been taken seriously, although it would be good if people didn't sing it today. Because of the peace treaty that was signed in South Africa on behalf of all South Africans in 1994 between Mr. Mandela and Mr. de Klerk. Gali Kriel, the CEO of AfriForum, who seems like a reasonable fellow, as the head of this Afrikaner lobby group, and has been accused of pushing the narrative internationally and has lobbied the United States. Now here's the problem. If Gali Kriel, who's supposed to be a South African, goes to America to lobby America against his own country and against his own countrymen, you have to ask, what country does he then belong to? Who is he working on behalf of then? Is he really a South African, or does he see himself as something different? Then if he sees himself as something different, should he not find his own homeland in a place that's not South Africa? That's the thing I would like to ask the separatists. If you really hate all the other people of this country so much that you just can't be around them, well, this is Africa, Sian. And if you can't decide and be reasonable and you don't want to be countrymen with these people, there's a great big world out there that will be glad to have you. You should leave the African continent, or at least this country. and really find a homeland then. Because this is where the blacks and all these other people are. This is Africa. Are you part of it or are you not? But giving Kali Kriel the benefit of the doubt, you would have to say that he is right for his AfriForum, which is an organization that does many great things. He's right to use his organization to advocate for his people. Where the problem comes in is where now he runs all over in what is probably a treasonous act and tries to get other countries to act against our country. That's playing into the destabilization or being part of it. Which one is he?
Wait a minute. Something ain't right.
Cyril Ramaphosa has constantly rejected the genocide framing and challenged Trump's claims. He didn't challenge Trump face to face in the Oval. He made a speech like a coward after that meeting, trashing Trump like the coward that he is. And I don't care what considerations he had to make in the Oval Office and what was in the background. The fact of the matter is he didn't have the facts in hand. And for every piece of paper Trump produced, he should have produced a piece of paper of his own, telling the truth, defending his country and his countrymen. President Ramaphosa is a vapid, useless golem.
I managed to debunk about 8 out of the 9 articles that Trump displayed when he was talking to Cyril Ramaphosa about white farm murders and whatnot. I'm going to show you some of those articles. And I'm going to show you the sources. I'm going to show you the original articles. This was the first article that I noted that he thinking. And by the way, this is a South African news website article. Now, out of all the things that he showed, this might be the only South African news thing. Now, if you're talking about South African news, does it not make sense to be looking at what the South Africans are reporting? But anyways, we'll leave it there. So this was the article that he showed from Times Live there. And I did find the original article. It's this article right here. Manhunt launched for brutal murder. Now, this already goes completely opposite to what Trump was claiming.
I said, hold up.
So this was apparent the only article that he put which had something to do with farm murders.
Come on now, dog.
Was this article right here. If you look at the article, it has nothing to do with farm murders. Black terrorists trying to seize production, whatever. Okay, I found the article. It's from this website here, American Thinker. There it is. Black terrorists talk about seizing land for production. This is not about farm murders. This is about topics concerning expropriation and all those kind of things. So this article has nothing to do with farm murders. So why did Trump use this one?
Come on, man.
Very article that you see him showing here has nothing to do with white farmers' genocide. It's about the law. It's just talking about that particular law.
What?
Go on to the next article. This was the next article that Trump showed. You can see. And funny enough, this particular article I did find why white South Africans are fleeing, urging violence and racial laws. Yeah, that's not about the farm murder. It's not about any particular farm murder. It's just stating the reason for why people left. Funny enough, I did find the article and they put it behind a paywall after Trump mentioned it. You can see the update. Updated 21 May. They immediately went and updated to put this article under a paywall. They went and put the article under a paywall after Trump mentioned it. Okay? And so this one is only discussing why people are moving.
Stop it.
But with this type of lies, you're not going to get us there. The next article that Trump showed was this article right here. When Trump spoke about this family, this article right here, he spoke about it and he said, yeah, there was all this violence that they had suffered and that this particular family had suffered. Well, I found it the true article. It's this article right here. It was posted under the New York Post. You can see the article. There it is on the 21st. It says white couple say that it says nothing, basically. This article says nothing about violence. Trump made it about violence. If you listen to the video, Trump made this article about violence. This particular article that he pulled up here. This article doesn't say anything about that. They speak about harassment. And if you watch, there is actually even a new podcast that was interviewing a black lady who went to rent a farm, and she too faced harassment.
Come on, man.
The next article was the worst one. It's this article right here. Actually, these two articles are actually the worst in my view. This article that Trump pulled up here and said, this is a mass grave site. By the way, the media got on him immediately. Trump displays DRC visuals to prove genocide. Yeah, that is not even thinking. I found the video. It's this video right here. It's from DRC. It has nothing to do with South Africa. It's a very recent thing. Women were victimized. And as a matter of fact, the article that Trump shows right here, if you can actually see, it's not talking about farm murders. If you actually go, I did find the right article. It's this one right here. It's talking about tribalism. It has nothing to do with South Africa. So right there, even Reuters called him out on that particular article right there, and they state, hey, Chief, you are lying here. This has nothing to do with South Africa.
Get some help.
Next article, which I said was the second one, which was the worst. This article right here. When Trump pulled up this article, go watch the video. He literally says this family was wiped out. Trump lied. When I saw that picture, I said, something is wrong. I went and I searched American refugees. That family that it displays is this family right here. That family is one of the families that came to America recently. Trump says that this family was wiped out.
Come on now, dog.
The University of Johannesburg stated there is no credible evidence to support the claim that white farmers in South Africa are being systematically targeted as part of a campaign of genocide. The Institute of Security Studies has published data showing white people are statistically the least at risk of murder in South Africa.
Okay.
White farm owners' deaths is more likely to be covered in the news than the killing of a rural smallholder. The head of South Africa's largest agricultural organization, Johan Kotza, has publicly stated the issue is about crime, not white genocide. Trump displayed an aerial shot of thousands of white crosses lining the side of a rural road, calling it a burial site of thousands of murdered Afrikaners. Local South Africans identified the site as a roadside memorial for 2 white farmers murdered 5 years prior, along with other farm murder victims regardless of their skin color, because in that memorial there were also people being honored who were not white or Afrikaners.
You would have seen a video played in the Oval Office. The video shown by the White House emphasized a lot of things, including statements made by EFF leader or Commander-in-Chief Julius Malema, as well as former President Jacob Zuma. But the one thing that President Trump touched on was a video that was taken from the sky in a helicopter. And it showed a road and crosses on either side of this road as hundreds, if not thousands, of vehicles lined this road.
Those people were all killed.
Have they told you where that is, Mr. President? No, I'd like to know where that is.
Now, that video was taken in September 2020. It was taken on a rural road in the Normandie area, which is in northern KwaZulu-Natal, in an area known as Newcastle. And that video was taken in response to a murder that was committed earlier that week. On August 30th, 2020, Glenn and Vida Rafferty, a progressive couple in the Normandie area, were murdered at their farm. They were killed along with their dog as intruders entered their home and ransacked their place and stole a number of items and goods before fleeing in Glenn's vehicle. The vehicle was found later abandoned, and 2 years later, subsequently, 3 people were arrested and charged with the murder as well as robbery with aggravating circumstances and sentenced respectively. But that specific protest you saw in the video, right, was a multiracial protest.
The crosses are no longer at that location. Roland Collier, nephew of one of the murdered couple, told the BBC, "It's not a burial site. It was a memorial." A photograph of body bags shown by the Trump team during the narrative was not from South Africa at all. And none of the people who are pushing the white genocide or are advocating for farm murders ever stand up and say that Donald Trump lied about South Africa, which means that they are all right with what Trump is saying, because what Trump is essentially saying here is that the savage black people are killing all the nice white people in South Africa. And he's showing pictures of body bags falsely and claiming that it's South Africa. And none of the people standing up, advocating for farm murders or pushing the white genocide narrative are standing up to say that that was a lie. That picture of the body bags that Trump showed was a screen grab from a piece of Reuters footage of the aftermath of a deadly jailbreak in the Democratic Republic of Congo in February of 2025, in which 100 women were raped and burnt alive, which is tragic and horrible, but not South Africa. And where was Cyril to say, what is this photo? You lying, fat, orange, Freemason, pedo. And where are the Afrikaner countrymen of South Africans to say that there is a terrible thing happening with farm murders, but do not lie and cast these aspersions about my countrymen? This is the thing. This is the propaganda. This is the division, and this is the destabilization. Trump is also inaccurate in claiming nothing happens to those who carry out farm murders. In November 2022, 2 men were convicted and sentenced to life in prison for the murders of Glenn and Vida Rafferty, the couple whose death sparked the 2020 protest involving white crosses that Trump falsely called a mass grave. Luxury goods tycoon and Afrikaner Johan Rupert was also in Ramaphosa's delegation, specifically to counter Trump's claims that land was being seized from white farmers. Now you see the problem with this. The South African president's word is as good as nothing, is as good as mud in the Oval Office, because he needs Johan Rupert. Nothing against Johan Rupert, but he needs Johan Rupert not because he's a successful businessman and a prominent South African. He needs him because his skin is white to come in and back up what he's saying. This is how well this propaganda has been pushed, because Trump doesn't believe it. Most of the people who are saying it don't believe it. And some of the commentators online talking about it don't really believe it or don't know any better. They want to believe it.
Trump knows that there's a video.
This performance yesterday in the Oval Office, even by the standards of a great showman like Trump, was really top-notch.
And they're pushing it because it's propaganda and it's destabilization. In February 2025, a refugee program officially known as Mission South Africa was launched by Israel, or should I say Trump, to grant asylum to white South Africans, primarily Afrikaners, under claims of systematic violence and racial discrimination linked to land reform policies. On May 12, 2025, the first group of 59 white South Africans arrived at Dulles International Airport in North Virginia. They were welcomed by U.S. officials, including Deputy Secretary of State Christopher Landau, and provided with resettlement assistance. According to the State Department, all spoke English, and about a third already had relatives in the United States. The South African government criticized the executive order, stating, "It is ironic that the executive order makes provision for refugee status in the United States for a group of South Africans that remain among the most economically privileged, while vulnerable people in the US and people from other parts of the world are being deported and being denied asylum despite real hardship." Trump's administration set up this resettlement program for white Afrikaners despite having suspended refugee admissions from all other parts of the world, including war zones. Combine those two things, land reform criticism and the Israel ICJ charges, indicates that this is less of a humanitarian concern for the Afrikaners. It's more of a way of weaponizing criticism for South Africa, weaponizing criticism of South Africa. Add to that, that was around the time Trump was running around the world and pushing up tariffs on everybody, including South Africa.
Our Trump tariffs that have come across the Atlantic, where are we on that again? It was around about 30%. Is that still the play? With all the tariff changes, it's a little difficult for me to keep up sometimes.
It was a pressure campaign, and it is still one of the major propaganda campaigns in this country. By the time the CBS 60 Minutes report came out in February 26, almost 2,000 Afrikaner refugees had arrived in the US under the program. One of the key organizations here is AfriForum. AfriForum is described as an Afrikaner lobby group that has been championing the narrative that Afrikaners are under an existential threat, some sort of swart gevaar part 2. AfriForum is widely considered one of the more reliable sources of farm murder data, even relied on by journalists critical of the genocide narrative, because it correlates information from police, private security, victims, and media. its figures broadly match official government data. CEO Kali Kriel became a familiar face in South Africa and international media. AfriForum has itself distanced from the phrase white genocide. In some context, a South African broadcaster had to apologize after claiming AfriForum specifically used the phrase, when in fact it had not used the exact term. This propaganda campaign relies on falsehoods. Falsehoods like the white farmers are being systematically and deliberately targeted for their race as part of a state-organized or organized group campaign. No credible evidence supports this. The motive in roughly 90% of farm attacks is robbery. They rely on falsehoods like that nothing happens to killers of white farmers. Prosecutions and life sentences have been handed down, including in the Rafferty case. The White House crosses shown by Trump were burial sites, they say. They were a temporary protest memorial and have since been removed, and they were there to commemorate the Rafferty couple and other farmers of different races as well, not just Afrikaner farmers. They show falsehoods like the body bag image shown by Trump to Ramaphosa in that meeting and calls it South African victims when it was in fact a prison riot in the DRC. They rely on falsehoods like the land has been seized from white farmers under the 2025 Expropriation Act. As of mid-2025, no seizures or confiscations of private property has taken place, and farms don't just get seized from white people in South Africa ever. That has never happened. That's crazy. And to claim that makes you a liar and a fraud and an evil golem. And for Trump in particular, an Epsteinist. Farm murders have in fact been declining from 32 in 2004 down from 50 in 2023 and 43 in 2022. This is about crime actually. Falsehoods that what is happening meets the UN definition of genocide, and it does not. This requires intent to destroy a group. No evidence of such intent exists at the state or organized group level. Neither do the numbers of deaths meet this. What is legitimately concerning is this. Farm murders, while a small fraction of total murders, are disproportionately brutal in nature, often involving torture, and are deeply traumatic. And as I've said, it's because sadistic violent criminals know that they have time to toy around with their victims and do their sadistic fantasies because the police are far away and it's in places that are difficult to find, and there are no neighbors that can just easily overhear something happening in the house. South Africa has one of the highest murder rates in the world. 25,423 people were murdered in the 2024-2025 financial year, an average of 69 people per day. This is a national crisis affecting all races, with black South Africans bearing the overwhelming burden. Rural policing is severely inadequate, leaving isolated farms particularly vulnerable. That's where the farmers themselves have stepped up, and AfriForum and organizations like that have stepped up to try and police the farms themselves. The Expropriation Act's no compensation provisions, while not yet implemented, do create genuine legal uncertainty for landowners. South Africa's Gini coefficient is the highest globally at 0.65, and the wealthiest 10% of South Africans control approximately 70 to 71% of the country's wealth, while the bottom 60% just hold 7%. This extreme inequality is the structural root of South Africa's violent crime epidemic. Official unemployment in South Africa stood at 32% at the end of 2022. Poverty and unemployment are the primary drivers of crime, including farm attacks. Relations between the two countries, South Africa and the United States, have strained since Trump signed an executive order in February 2025 claiming white South Africans are victims of government land confiscation, false, and race-based genocide, false. It is a propaganda campaign to propagandize people.
It's a kind of communication that makes a case for a goal bypassing reason.
And to try and sow division and destabilize South Africa on behalf of Israel, while Israel commits an actual genocide. This is Epstein-Barr behavior. And Kali Kriel and other people defending this or winking at it or letting it happen without telling the truth that are calling themselves white South Africans should be careful allowing themselves to be used in such lies. Because of a day when you really need your countrymen to stand up for you, who will you call your countrymen then? Trump also halted all foreign aid to South Africa and expelled the country's ambassador one Ibrahim Rasool. Secretary of State Marco Rubio refused to attend the G20 summit in Johannesburg, claiming South Africa is doing very bad things.
You are fake news.
Very bad things, they say. And this is something Trump also says. But most of the time when they say this, they never name the very bad things and back it up with evidence, because there are no very bad things that are in line with a white genocide, and there are no very bad things evidence. The very bad thing that is happening is a propaganda campaign meant to destabilize South Africa. That's the very bad thing they're doing. The very bad thing that is actually happening in South Africa is crime because of an inept government. South Africa's separate decision to bring genocide charges against Israel at the International Court of Justice further inflamed Washington. So that's where things stand. This is a propaganda campaign. The farm murder crisis in South Africa is real and brutal. It is a symptom of the country's catastrophic inequality, inadequate rural policing, and a general violent crime epidemic, not evidence of an organized or state-sponsored campaign to eliminate white people. If black people wanted to eliminate white people in South Africa, like I said, it might take about an hour. And that's with all the guns that the white militias have in this country. It would still take about an hour. And most of the people in this country would not even realize it was happening. They would see it on the news or on Twitter or on X. The white genocide framing misrepresents the data, distorts the legal definition of genocide, and is used by international actors and domestic political opportunists to serve ideological agendas that have little to do with actually resolving the violence that affects all South Africans. They are liars and pushing a propaganda on behalf of the Gaza genociders, Israel, through Washington to destabilize this country in a propaganda campaign that Bell Pottinger would be proud of. All to try and control South Africa and take space and power for themselves. To what end? If South Africa is never repaired, the men can blame themselves. That is why I ask you to join our membership for this channel today. Our Christian Conservative membership is for men who are interested in understanding the sort of men and the disciplines and principles that truly build societies. The same disciplines and principles we need to apply if we are to repair our country, our beloved South Africa. Join today. I look forward to seeing you over there. May the Lord shine on you today.
Why are you running? Why are you running?
The second propaganda campaign that is being carried out in South Africa, Bell Pottinger style, is the campaign around the illegal immigrants.
This is just one of several demonstrations in recent weeks targeting migrants in South Africa. Thousands of people in Durban, Pretoria, and now Johannesburg say they want more government action to tackle what they say is illegal immigration. Critics say groups like this are simply xenophobic.
Anyone just wakes up in the morning and decides that they're having problems in their own country. Oh, let me look for greener pastures, and it's South Africa. And if we don't say anything about it, or if we say something about it, we're told that it's black people. This is not a skin color thing. It's about us protecting our country, which is a sovereign state. We love our African brothers and sisters, but it's time now that they also fix their own countries for their own children and their own future.
Where South Africans are being called xenophobic. So if the white genocide propaganda campaign is calling South Africa evil black savages that are killing all the good white people, the xenophobia campaign is calling South Africans self-hating, anti-immigrant, bigoted people who are haters of foreigners who want to kill them. So on both accounts, whether the white genocide or the xenophobia thing, the South Africans are being called uncultured savages who are trying to kill people.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
Propaganda meant to fragment the country and cause division so that those who are pushing the propaganda campaign can step in as the solution. These are the two major propaganda campaigns, white genocide and the xenophobia, illegal immigrants thing, being pushed in South Africa today, and they're being pushed all towards the violent, murderous South African narrative, this myth while the facts on the ground are very different. When people talk about xenophobia, they refer specifically to hostility, discrimination, and violence, as they see it, directed at foreign nationals, predominantly other black Africans from neighboring and nearby countries, and this is apparently being carried out by South African citizens, particularly in poor urban townships.
This is the second night out in the cold for this group of foreign nationals in Durban. They fled their homes on Monday and slept outside the Durban Central Police Station. Violent scenes, police chased them from there on Tuesday. They have now sought refuge at the Diakonia Center.
It's my first time experiencing this, and it says, I don't know, I just feel like, I don't know if it's the government or it's the people that I grew up with, that I feel that not all of them are bad, but it's feel that there is hatred for us somewhere out there, whether it's hatred or not wanting us to be amongst themselves.
According to the latest census of 2022, South Africa is home to about 2.4 million migrants, illegal aliens, constituting 4% of the total population of the 62 million people. This is a slight increase from the 2.1 recorded in the 2011 census. The 2024 Migration Profile Report of South Africa, released on March 2024, states that the percentage share of immigrants to the total population decreased from 4.2% to 3.9% between 2011 and 2022. What they should say is that they've lost most of these people, and these people don't come forward to document themselves. Because how will they know? And many of them have false documents and just call themselves South Africans.
I don't think you have the facilities for that, big man.
The top 4 sending countries are Zimbabwe, Mozambique, Malawi, and Lesotho, all located within the Southern African region and sharing land borders with South Africa, except Malawi. According to UN and DESA data of 2019, Mozambique has more than 700,000 immigrants in South Africa. Zimbabwe has almost 400,000. Lesotho about 350,000. In other words, they have no cooking clue because people can come and go because the borders are so porous. People say that when South Africans say that there are millions of illegal immigrants, that this claim is false. Figures ranging from 3 to 12 million are routinely cited by politicians, and the 2022 census-based figure of 2.4 million for all international migrants, documented and undocumented combined, is what is put forward on paper. Stats SA estimates that undocumented immigration stock increased by over 100% between 2011 and 2015 to between 500,000 and 1 million people. The population of migrants stands at less than 4 million, or about 6.5% of the population. How would you know?
The Beitbridge border post has started recording high volumes of travelers heading to South Africa from Zimbabwe. Frustration crept in for those who spent hours in the queues before being cleared.
No, the traveling from where we are coming, it is well. Just the problem is here in the border. Yes, the things in border here, they are going very slowly.
In 2022, Aaron Motsoaledi said that an estimated 3.95 million foreigners live in South Africa and admitted that the government does not have records accounting for all undocumented migrants. And therein lies the point, because the propaganda is being pushed that South Africans are violent and they hate foreigners, all while the number of illegal aliens continues to rise and has been rising ever since the 2000s and is only getting more and worse. Why? Why are they letting this happen? Is this to dilute South Africa, South African culture, to have a population of people that are so ingratiated to the government that let them come in that they would eventually cause themselves and their children, when it eventually comes to this, to vote ANC? Is that what they want? Because a lot of these people are going to get naturalized. The government is eventually going to say, we have so many foreigners, there's nothing we can do about them except make them citizens. And these are the exact people that will vote ANC because that's who let them in. And so will their illegitimate, unrecognized, non-South African children. If South Africa's never repaired, the men can blame themselves. That is why I ask you to join our membership for this channel today. Our Christian Conservative membership is for men who are interested in understanding the sort of men and the disciplines and principles that truly build societies. The same disciplines and principles we need to apply if we are to repair our country, our beloved South Africa. Join today. I look forward to seeing you over there. May the Lord shine on you today.
Why are you running? Why are you running?
South Africa is the most industrial economy on the continent. That's why I hate it when people say the immigrants contribute so much, they do so much. Who are these people? They would be nothing without this country. All the taxes they pay are because they live in South Africa, and South Africa has given them everything that they have. They would not be making that money. They would not have that business. They would not drive that car or have that nice house or have freedom to talk against the government and to say whatever they want and to feed their families and educate their families. If they were not living in South Africa, they would be nothing. They would be poverty-stricken paupers of some terrible country. They are not doing us any favors.
Go home.
We have given them everything. Economic inequality between South Africa and its neighbors is the primary driver of migration. The per capita income gap between South Africa and its neighbors, particularly Zimbabwe, Mozambique, and Malawi, is enormous. Zimbabwe has decades-long economic collapse under Mugabe. The DRC is in conflict. Drought and extreme poverty across the region also doesn't help. South Africa has the highest child migration population on the continent. That's a nice way of saying child trafficking happens a lot in this country and is the highest on the continent, which might mean it's among the highest in the world.
And the disappearance of Jocelyn Smith has gripped the country. The 6-year-old went missing from a home in Saldanha Bay on the 19th of February. Search teams are continuing their hunt for her, with authorities saying they are hopeful. 4 people, including her mother, Kelly, appeared in court this week facing charges of kidnapping and trafficking.
According to UNICEF in 2024, 642,000 migrant or displaced children in South Africa, including unaccompanied and separated minors, that's trafficking. Smuggling migrants, that's trafficking. Refugees, that's just another word for trafficking. Asylum seekers, that's trafficking under a nice tone. And traffic victims, which all of the previous ones also were. Which means that South Africa, because of the porous borders, has also become a trafficking hub for children and who knows what else. This is evil. This is one of the reasons this propaganda exists, because if we let it happen, it means that trafficking can carry on. This is some Jeffrey Epstein level Freemasonic stuff happening here.
And South Africa is increasingly being exploited by international criminals to push drugs to other parts of the world. Only a few days ago, police intercepted a 70 million rand cocaine shipment at the Durban harbour. And on Friday, an 80 million rand stash was found at King Shaka International Airport.
Stop it. Get some help.
On the 12th of May 2008, a series of riots started in the township of Alexander in Johannesburg when locals attacked migrants from Mozambique, Malawi and Zimbabwe, killing 2 people and injuring 40. Some attackers were reported to have been singing Jacob Zuma's campaign song. By the time the anti-immigrant violence was curtailed, 62 people had lost their lives and more than 100,000 were displaced. The violence spread to other Gauteng settlements, then to Durban and Cape Town, and parts of the Southern Cape and Mpumalanga and the Northwest and the Free State. By the end, 62 people were reported dead, 1,400 suspects were arrested. 9 months later, 128 individuals had been convicted and 30 found not guilty in 105 concluded court cases. 208 cases had been withdrawn and 156 were still being heard. The violence of 2008 was distinctive. It affected black, African, foreign nationals, and poor South Africans in townships. Researchers also note that at least 1/3 of the victims were actually South African citizens. In 2009, in Deodorance, from the 14th to the 17th of November 2009, 3,000 Zimbabwean citizens lived in Deodorance. How do 3,000 Zimbabweans even get to the Deodorance? an informal settlement in the Western Cape, were displaced as a result of so-called xenophobic violence that severely targeted Zimbabweans despite the presence of other foreign nationals living in the same area. Perhaps there were reasons for that actually. It's not some outsized hate for Zimbabweans, because who cares about Zimbabweans? This is a soft invasion that changes the culture and changes the country. They bring with them their own habits and their own cultures, which is something in South Africa that is more than welcome, but there is a tipping point for every country. You cannot have too much of this thing, because then it starts to feel like not your country.
Go home.
In recent weeks, Operation Dudula has allegedly been taking control of clinic queues across Johannesburg and barring immigrants from entering health facilities. The Red Beret say this unlawful blockade has resulted in the tragic loss of a 1-year-old child.
These people have had their freedom or independence for much longer than South African black people have had, but yet they are still flooding to South Africa to this day.
We're making it very clear to you guys, Utitina, we don't want you here.
In this video widely shared on social media, a man from Ghana is told to go home to fix his country.
This means that they have done nothing with their countries and their countries have failed. Now they bring that overflow of failure here. This is a soft invasion and a globalist plot. All the commotion that is being started now with March and March and other organizations is a reaction to this destabilization.
A relentless attempt once again by the March and March movement and its associates. The group is once again calling for government intervention in deporting undocumented foreign nationals currently residing in South Africa.
Now what they must do is not fall into being part of the destabilization. They must be a force to push back, because when they start pushing back, they can either worsen the destabilization or block that tide, that flowing tide of destabilization, that momentum that the destabilization has caused by bringing back order. They will either bring disorder, which means they will fall into the destabilization, or they will stem the tide and bring order, which means they will stop the destabilization. On 21 March 2015, King Goodwill Zwelithini made comments at a moral regeneration event in Pangola that foreigners should go back to their home countries because they were changing the nature of South African society. The Zulu King was of course correct. He was quoted as saying, "We urge all foreigners to pack their bags and leave.
Go home. Abahambe."
His statements were described by researchers as reckless. Of course, those people are part of the destabilization. These researchers are often left-wing, non-government institution types that want some sort of worldwide peacenik, no borders, George Soros type of place. And the irony is that more than a few of the sort of people you see from these organizations are foreign themselves. And they want to tell the Zulu King what he can say. In April of 2015, there was an upsurge in so-called xenophobic attacks throughout South Africa, starting in Durban and spreading to Johannesburg. Locals looted foreign shops and attacked migrants, forcing hundreds to relocate to police stations. More than 300 people were arrested, 7 people died. And these sort of things will keep happening if the South African government does nothing, because what the citizens are saying is that we want these people out. These people are illegal and are destabilizing our society. This is something the government should be doing. They should be pushing and pulling these people out. They should be arresting people left, right, and center and breaking down entire squatter camps, evicting people from captured buildings and communities, and they should be getting these illegals out. Because if they don't, the population will start pushing back. And once the population starts pushing back, who knows where the thing goes? Who knows how it ends? A government commission report found that many underlying tensions had roots in the unresolved violence of 2008 and concluded there is a strong possibility of recurrence. The report identified the Zulu King's comments as a key trigger. Now the king was used as a scapegoat. Instead of years of neglect, by the ANC government and their porous borders. What do you think is going to happen when you let a country being soft invaded? The people are going to start pushing back, and once they do, they take matters into their own hands. In 2019, a further wave of attacks broke out in August and September of 2019, particularly in Johannesburg, following police raids on undocumented migrants in the CBD. And the CBD of Johannesburg has been taken over by Nigerians and other foreigners. If you step into the Johannesburg CBD, you can walk through that place and it does not feel like South Africa. That is a problem. That's when citizens start pushing back and calling the feeling you get as a South African, not feeling like you live in your country, calling you xenophobic, is a way of trying to make you feel guilty so that you deny that feeling and let this happen. And when you let it happen, it's like letting someone break into your house and sexually assault your children and your wife. It is unmanly, it is unpatriotic, it is evil. It is a propaganda campaign meant to destabilize this country, fracture it, weaken the people and weaken the men. And finally, we see people pushing back.
Propaganda is ubiquitous and everyone uses propaganda. It's a kind of communication that makes a case for a goal bypassing reason.
We are kindly asking, if you know that you are not a South African citizen, may you please stand up and leave our hospital. If you know that you are not a South African citizen, may you please stand up and leave our hospital.
If you look at it objectively, the people of South Africa have actually been very patient and very calm and very accepting. Because in truth, something should have happened much worse a very long time ago, specifically when you consider the sort of guest houses the Nigerians have built, the drugs they sell, turning those guest houses into brothels, the zama-zamas from Lesotho and Zimbabwe, the Pakistani child killing spaza shops, so on and so forth. South Africans have been too passive and too polite, actually. And when things like Operation Dudula crop up, people want to call these people bigots. This is a lie. These are patriots. Operation Dudula is a splinter group from the Put South Africa First movement, an organization that first popularized anti-immigrant campaigns on social media before finding expression on the ground. Operation Dudula led their first march on the 16th of June 2021 through Soweto, targeting suspected foreign drug traffickers because the police weren't doing it and the police are working with these people, and businesses that employed only immigrants. How is that possible? In April 2022, the group expanded to Durban, in May 22 to the Western Cape. On its launch day, Operation Dudula targeted street hawkers of foreign origin. In a search and seizure operation, about 1,000 members also raided drug dens and evicted immigrants suspected of illegally occupying RDP houses. In April 2022, Cyril Ramaphosa, the Phala scammer, officially condemned the group as a vigilante group. How dare you? Following weeks of public pressure from civil society organizations. On March 2022, one of the members of Dudula back then, a man known as Nhlanhla Lux, was arrested on charges of orchestrating a raid on a Soweto home of an EFF member he accused of selling drugs. He received 2 suspended sentences. On July 2022, Nhlanhla Lux cut ties with Operation Dudula over differences of opinion. Operation Dudula wanted all foreigners to leave South Africa, while his Soweto parliament only wanted illegal foreigners out. In May of 2023, Operation Dudula declared itself a political party intending to contest the 2024 elections. Both Operation Dudula and March and March are doing good work. That is a result of citizens wanting to push back, and whether you agree with how they do it or not, it's actually important and it's actually inevitable. It flows out of exactly what has been allowed to happen in this country. The society is fracturing and someone has to push back. They will either fall on the side of the propaganda or they will bring back order. That remains to be seen where this actually ends up. One of the notes I have for Dudula and March, and I think it's starting to change, and this is important, is that both of them are led by women. The women are to be commended for the work that they have done, and they're patriots for this. But if this thing is to bring order, these organizations, and I would hope there would be 1,000 more like them springing up in every village, in every township, in every suburb, in every complex in this country. They should be led by men. They should be well organized, coordinated, networked groups that are able to use advocacy and their own propaganda to do it, and when needs be, physical force. These are patriots, and the men need to take charge if this country is to be brought back to order. Organizations like Dudula and March, blocking people from hospitals and schools. People see it as harsh, but I see it as an inevitable end of where this thing was always going to go. It may seem harsh now, but these are harsh times. A message has to be sent here, and if you are going to get these people out of your country, you need to be stone cold serious. There can be no quarter given, and eventually there will be no excuses and no alibis. You must uproot this thing at the root, otherwise you will never be rid of it. Because it's almost already too late. Because who is a South African and who is not? When you see every single advert, foreigners playing South Africans, advertising everything from milk to cars to insurance to chocolates. And they always use a foreigner. This is disgusting. It must be rooted out. There is no other way. This may seem harsh, but this is a line. You're starting to draw lines here. And these people, the Nigerians and the Somalis, they always talk down to South Africans like they have given us something. This country has made these people rich. This country has given these fail-pop peasants everything. And they talk down to South Africans? God forbid. Advocacy groups allege that police and Home Affairs have colluded with Operation Dudula in conducting raids. Operation Dudula joined Home Affairs in a lawsuit to prevent the extension of the Zimbabwean Exemption Permit, the ZEP, which provides 178,000 Zimbabweans with residence visas.
Home Affairs Minister Dr. Leon Schreiber has issued an immigration directive that extends the validity of the Zimbabwe Exemption Permit, also known as the ZEP, until 28 May 2027. Now, the said permit, which allows approximately 178,000 Zimbabweans to live, work and study in South Africa lawfully, was set to expire on the 28th of November 2025. However, a successful court challenge against the termination of the ZEP placed the permit's future squarely in the minister's hands and directed that any decision about the permit must be preceded by a rational, constitutionally fair process. Schreiber, however, confirms in the directive that the consultation process is still ongoing.
Nhlanhla Lux Dlamini, a Soweto resident, arrested in 2022 for raiding the home of a drug dealer. He was called a vigilante and put to trial. But there are so many drug dealers running around townships and suburbs and nightclubs of foreign origin, selling drugs to South African citizens and trapping young girls into prostitution. The sort of politicians that are not on the good side of the South African citizen and trying to sort out the illegal alien problem are people like Julius Malema, who keeps advocating for these people to come to this country, knowing that he will use them as political tools to gain power. Cyril Ramaphosa's right there with him, condemning South Africans instead of solving the problem and getting rid of these foreign people. Who are these people and why are they even here?
Do me a favor, please. Get out of here. Get out of here, man.
But remember, an illegal alien is someone you can't track. So even if you were trying to catch him for a crime, using fingerprints or address or anything like that, where would you even find this person? Even if you have them on camera, all they have to do is skip over the border and that's it. This is a propaganda campaign. Can you see the propaganda? Because on the ground, the reality is very different. When groups of Nigerians have taken over parts of the Johannesburg CBD and other places and are running brothels, fake churches, to say to South Africans that your eyes are lying, these people are good, and they've done you a favor when South Africa has given these peasant fail-pops everything. And we're supposed to just let this happen and let our children, our women, and this country be ripped apart by people of no particular origin that we have no allegiance with, that we don't even know.
Me personally, I wouldn't take this level of disrespect.
There is no place for illegal immigrants in South Africa or refugees or anyone else who wants to call themselves this, especially people from weird cultures, Somalis, Pakistanis, Nigerians, and Zimbabweans and whoever else. We already have enough cultures in this country as is. And we have to get our country in order with all our problems, with all the crime, with all our own different cultures, without adding this new group of unknowns. It is just not going to work. And the propaganda to call South Africans xenophobic for naming and knowing this clear fact is a lie that should be rejected as a George Soros funded sort of a thing. This is globalism, this is open borders, and this is government corruption at the highest level. If South Africa is never repaired, the men can blame themselves. That is why I ask you to join our membership for this channel today. Our Christian conservative membership is for men who are interested in understanding the sort of men and the disciplines and principles that truly build societies. The same disciplines and principles we need to apply if we are to repair our country, our beloved South Africa. Join today. I look forward to seeing you over there. May the Lord shine on you today.
Why are you running? Why are you running?
March movement is intensifying its calls for government to address illegal immigration. Supporters are marching to the Gauteng legislature over their concerns about undocumented migrants, which they say strain the public purse and take jobs from South Africans. The group marched on the union buildings in Pretoria just yesterday, where a memorandum of demands was handed over to the presidency.
We're told that many immigrants fill roles in sectors South Africans are unwilling or unavailable to fill, like informal trading, domestic work, seasonal agriculture, labor, and small-scale enterprise. What these people are trying to say that South Africans were not doing these things? When South Africa used to be a country that had almost full employment and were doing these things at a high level, a country that needs foreigners to fill jobs like this is a country that is so well developed and so rich, where everybody's so overeducated that nobody works at that level in that country. They're too rich. That's why you get the foreigners. That's not this country, not yet anyway. But now we're told that foreigners need to come in to do these jobs. This is propaganda and a lie. In 2018, a report by the OECD found that immigrants made a positive contribution to the economy, looking at sectors in which South African and immigrant workers were employed and average productivity. The report calculated that immigrants contributed around 9% of South Africa's GDP. This is a false positive. Anyone with logic can tell you that these people had nothing. They came here, and all the input costs of the roads, of the electricity, of the infrastructure, of the opportunity was given to them by this country. Then they were given the opportunity to work or to do their little business, and once that thing comes off because of the systems and the environment of this country, they can then pay back that 9% from South African customers, because now they have a market with all the input costs done by South African generations before them, before they ever got here, and other input costs being done currently by South Africans to upkeep what we have. This is a false positive and a false result, and they want to call us bigots for having logic. These people give nothing that we have not first given them. The government has admitted to severely underfunding border management and that it is inadequately staffed and corrupted. Now, how do you let in millions of people? You don't just do it because that's too obvious. How do you do it without making it too obvious? You underfund the very organization that's supposed to do that work. If they lack the resources and they feel overwhelmed, then the criminal illegals can take advantage and start moving over the borders, trafficking everything from Hilux bakkies to children. Where's Jocelyn Smith, by the way? South Africa shares borders with Lesotho, Botswana, Eswatini, Mozambique, Namibia, and Zimbabwe. These borders face challenges including illegal migration, cross-border crime, and delays at ports of entry, exacerbated by porous borders, corruption, and aging infrastructure. And this is being done on purpose. Because of the corruption within the Department of Home Affairs, which causes many people to remain undocumented who would otherwise apply for proper documentation, making the legal and illegal distinction less clear-cut. And this is being done on purpose, so that all these illegal people can float around in this country, selling drugs, killing our children with their dirty, filthy spaza shops and committing all sorts of crimes, even working in government and showing up disgustingly on our TV ads, obviously. Service delivery in townships has broken down completely. Densely populated, underserved communities with inadequate schools, clinics, housing, and sanitation face genuine strain, and add on top of that millions of illegal foreigners. South Africa has an unemployment rate of approximately 32 to 35%, with youth unemployment as high as 60 to 65% by some measures, with unemployment at 35 rising to 65 amongst the youth. Competition for jobs is already tight without foreign illegals. Cross-border organized crime networks, drug trafficking, human trafficking, vehicle theft operate across South Africa's borders, with foreign nationals obviously involved. In 2019, South Africa initiated a 5-year national action plan to combat xenophobia, racism, and discrimination, instead of using that money to mobilize the military, policing, and border management and infrastructure builders to build a wall at the border, because our policy at the border should be soldiers ready, dogs on the prowl, and guns out. South Africa is a signatory to the 1951 UN Refugee Convention and the 1967 Protocol. It is obligated to process asylum claims, not to deport asylum seekers without due process, and to provide basic services. We should reconsider this and think about pulling out and call a state of emergency against illegal immigration and do everything we can to not only stem the tide but uproot these people and send all of them home, building a wall and keep it tight, tighter than it has to be, because to uproot this thing is going to take an effort, a big effort. The September 2024 Basic Education Amendment Act reaffirmed the right of undocumented children to access basic education. We should disallow that. We should put pressure on the illegal aliens, and we should rethink how we deal with their rights here in South Africa. This is a propaganda campaign to try and stop South Africans from standing up for themselves. It is meant to fracture the country, make us feel guilty about what we see and what we know in our hearts to be true, that we should push these people out and reclaim our country. And that's exactly what we should do. If South Africa is never repaired, the men can blame themselves. That is why I ask you to join our membership for this channel today. Our Christian conservative membership is for men who are interested in understanding the sort of men and the disciplines and principles that truly build societies. The same disciplines and principles we need to apply if we are to repair our country, our beloved South Africa. Join today. I look forward to seeing you over there. May the Lord shine on you today.
Why are you running? Why are you running?
Magwala, cheche, Hoya Rona,
Welcome.